Google is launching experiments inside of YouTube, video experiments, which is so exciting if you're running YouTube ads, and we are. Google comes out and says, we're launching video experiments globally, and there's, it sounds like a multitude of experiments, but the three that they're giving us here, modifying text, tightening the frame, adding a call to action. What I really like about this is I like in-app testing, because you're already doing this, right? If you're running video ads, you're already testing yourself, running variations and then gauging conversion action or efficacy or CTR, whatever it is your KPI happens to be. But I like it when we rely on the machine learning mechanism to do it, because it's far more effective, and it's kind of cool to be able to tell Google, hey, here's specifically what I'm testing and my specific end result. Because far too often it's really easy for us to say like, oh, this thing won because, when you don't necessarily know. Like, you're not able to set the perfect environment for a split test the way that Google's able to set the perfect environment for a split test. And actually, it's unfair to say. It won't be perfect, but it'll be way better. Our split testing is artificial, and Google's split testing is real. So they said they're running it out in the next couple of weeks. This article is just a week old, too. So hopefully it's in play. If you have access to this, please let me know, because I don't. So if anybody has access to YouTube video experiments, let me know. I want to see them. I want to play with them. And I'm really excited to see the way that works. I think that it's going to help accelerate getting to a profitable point inside of your YouTube campaign, which is one of the hardest things in YouTube. It spends so much time inside of review, and then once it launches, finding what works and what doesn't. It's just kind of this from a media and a creative perspective. It's really hard, and especially if you're coming from the search side, we're not as used to like having to deal with the creative all that much, because it just, I don't want to say it's not important. Obviously it's important, but it's not as important as it would be on something like YouTube or display. So the experiments are going to be really cool. So that's the end of this message. You can bounce right now, but I have a soapbox I want to jump on. Something that I like to dive deep when I'm doing these videos, especially because I'm terrified of being found out. I have, let's call it like an insane sense of impostor syndrome. And so I want to know everything there is to know about something before I go live and tell you something that's wrong, which has happened before, by the way. I shot a video on how Google's going to deprecate all cookies when it ended up just being third-party cookies, and then somebody called me out on it in a very friendly way inside of the comments. And it's because of stuff that I'd read on forums, not anything that Google had released. So I like to dive super deep, and you'll notice when I do this, I click on everything that they provide, and I read all of the additional literature. Here's what's interesting, and it pisses me off. So Google says, knowing the outsized impact of creative on driving sales. And I'm like, that's interesting. Let's see what they mean by that. And when you click on it, it brings you to this article from Nielsen. And if you know who Nielsen is, they've been, like the authority inside of like the advertising measurement space forever. They're the people that used to put like black boxes on folks' TVs, like they'd pick 440 people or something and put a box in their TV to measure what they watch. And then the Nielsen ratings became the end all be all based off of that metrics. So Nielsen comes out and says, Project Apollo, and by the way, this is written in 2017. So Google, in their 2021 launch, cites an article written in 2017, which is immediately antiquated. And then these guys say, in 2006, so now Google in 2021 is citing an article written in 2017 that's citing data in 2006. 65% of brands' sales lift from advertising came from the creative. Okay, maybe that's true 2016, 15 years ago. But this is the thing that blew me away and kind of like scared me. Because they say percent of sales contribution by advertising element. So first of all, that would be a real tough thing to figure out in 500 campaigns. They say nearly 500 campaigns across all media platforms. And they've been able to split test 6 variations. So however they did this from a methodology standpoint, I'd be really interested in figuring out. But they come out to say that half of sales can be contributed to the creative. And I looked at that and I'm like, man, in the world of digital marketing, where targeting, context, recency, reach, like in the world of digital marketing, you're going to get 50% of sales attribution goes to the creative, especially in a multi-touch platform. Like it takes 31 impressions before somebody's ready to buy. Now, if we're talking about attribution, especially user acquisition, sure. In the very beginning, user acquisition, heavily veered towards creative when people are just getting to know you. But once they know you and you're playing remarketing, multi-touch, multi-funnel, multi-channel, like 10% to targeting, are you freaking kidding me? And I'm just looking at that going, there's no way. And then, by the way, they contradict themselves. The effect of media on sales has increased to 36% from 15%. Well, you just said it was 47%, bro. So anyway, I'm looking at this and I'm like, man, that just doesn't pencil. So I dive deeper, and they've got, where did I find this link even? Here at the bottom, they've got like download the full report. So I'm looking at the full report, and they have these 5 keys to advertising effectiveness, which is pretty cool. Reach, targeting, recency, creative, context. I haven't thought enough about this to decide whether or not I agree with these being the 5, but it sort of checks out and makes sense. Here's what's funny, is I start looking at it and they're like, oh, TV ads, TV campaigns. And I'm like, what the hell do you mean TV campaigns? Like, how is that relevant at all? Well, they have, where's the thing I wanted to show you? They're averaging TV and digital by creative performance. So, like, and they're also incorporating, where was the other thing? Sorry, y'all. This is the webinar, who cares? It's not just television. They're including radio and other media forms. Now, there's nothing wrong with that per se if you say it up front. It also incorporates a separate study that examines the reach of TV and digital for nearly 900 cross-media campaigns. So this is clearly like a lot of amalgamated data based on 500 studies, but then also an additional 900 cross-campaigns, and then multifaceted channels. Now we've decided that creative's the most important. And in my mind, I'm like, yeah, if you're looking at television, radio as well, of course, creative becomes like the only thing, because you can't target. You can't, and I realize that there's some targeting available now, but like targeting, context, reach and brand are still applicable, but targeting, context, and potentially even recency, because how do you measure that? Like, none of this, it's diluted by the medium. So this is a crap study. This is crap data. And Google's just citing it. Like, oh, this serves my purpose. Let me go in here because, cognitive dissonance, this is what I'm trying to say, and they've already said it, so let me go cite an expert that will reinforce what it is that I'm trying to say. Now, this happens to be a pretty benign citation, right? Like, I still want to use Google Creative experiments, but what an interesting thing to know. Here's Google citing an absolute junk study with absolute junk data that doesn't even refer or pertain to digital advertising or YouTube specifically, just to make a point. And it's like $1 trillion brand just did that, y'all. So the reason I'm on a soapbox, and the reason I told you could bounce if you weren't interested, is because you got to know this is how Google operates. Anytime they tell you anything, trust nothing. Try to click on all the links, read all the things, and then really think for yourself, like, I wonder if that's true. I wonder if I believe that. Because I don't believe that at all. Creative's worth 50%. I'm so offended. I'm so mad. I'm not saying that creative's not important. I realize I'm a data nerd bashing creative right now, so maybe that's cognitive dissonance. Like, maybe I'm just sitting here trying to defend the thing that I'm good at and, diminish the value of the thing that I'm not. But I don't think that's it at all. I know that creative is important. I know that it's important. I know that it's a critical element. If you have bad creative, you're not going to have, high-performing campaigns. But you can't take that data and use that to support that assertion. There's no way that it's 50% over targeting. Are you kidding me? Google, the master of all things tracking and targeting? Come on, y'all. At a minimum, if you made them even, I'd still fight you on it. But I'd be like, all right, well, if you have the data, then I'm going to back up because I don't have what you have. But anyway, soapbox over. It's interesting to know, though. It's interesting to see, like, what crap information the overlords are using to try to manipulate us, and what happens when you just scratch the surface just a little bit. And 500 studies went to 1,400 studies across multi-mediums and multi-years and multi-channels. And anyway, that's all I got. Like, comment, subscribe, all that. I don't know why I tell you that. I know you're gonna do it. Thanks so much. Bye.